This is Larry Spronk, and the following is the completion of the interview that I had with Mr. H.W. Henry Anderberg of Jamestown, North Dakota. The interview was held in Mr. Anderberg's apartment in downtown Jamestown, Sunday, February 9th, 1975, and it began at approximately 2 o'clock in the afternoon. On the flip side of this cassette is the interview that I had with Magdalena Thomas and Paul Cooperschmidt at the home of Magdalena Thomas in Jamestown, North Dakota. That interview was also held Sunday, February 9th, 1975, and it began at approximately 7:30 in the evening.
He's interested in the Zappos company over here that owns this building. The Zappos building over in the corner there.
Yeah?
Henry Linden's son is a stockbroker. And I think they use the Zappos company for investments. These are low bros in New York.
Was Henry married? Henry Linden?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. His wife died here a short time ago. He had a liquor store.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, his wife run that. Henry knows all. Henry's the one that made the deals for there. Just like Alvin Struts up there with that law practice.
What happened between Langer and Lemke?
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember what happened at that time. I wasn't on the inside enough to know. There was dissension amongst the leadership, but Langer left the nonpartisan league. When let's see, this fellow from Barnes County here was representative. The Farmers Union used to take group down there to Washington, and the delegation down there would give them dinner. And Langer would jump onto, the hell's his name is from Valley City, was a congressman. Langer was mean, and he said, watch out for him. He said, he's one of these IVAs, you know. He said, he'd like to be a United States Senator, and what's his name, he had just sat back there and take it. Then we got another congressman who used to be insurance commissioner. And took this fellow's place. And we had a dinner down there, and Langer started the same way on him. And after Langer got through, this fellow got up and he said, I hope you folks aren't concerned about Langer's talk about me, that I was IVA and such as that. He said, it doesn't bother me, and he said, I hope it doesn't bother you. He said, I'll tell you something, you know. And he said, Bill, I don't like to mention it, but he said, he was an IVA at one time too, and he said, we campaigned together, and he said, let me tell you what he said about Lynn J. Fraser and Bill Lemke and those fellows was worse than I ever said. And Langer, he just withered right down. That was the one thing Langer wanted to forget, that he once run for office on the IVA ticket. And I suppose it's in there that Lemke and him got on the outs. They got quarreling over the Bank of North Dakota at the Townley I think the year before Townley died. I went to Burdick's office in Washington, and I asked the girls, Congressman in? He's in conference. Everybody's in conference. Another one was there, said, go on in, Henry, he's just playing cards. And I went in there, and there's Burdick with a preacher that he had, and one of the elderly girls that he had there, they were playing pinochle in there. So when I came in, I had Burdick, he broke up the game, and I had Burdick sit and talk of politics, old times. Come on, let's go and get something to eat. So we went and got something to eat. When we came back there's A.C. Townley there. he used Burdick's office when he was in Washington. And we talked for a couple hours then of politics. They're those two old war horses in politics. Both strong, healthy. But there was where that friction came in. Bill Langer did, I think that would be enough to turn Leaguers against him, wouldn't it? Bill Langer turned against Lemke in the Nonpartisan League and was a candidate for office on the IVA ticket.
What was the relationship between Burdick and Townley? Were they always close? Did they always...
Between the old man and Townley, I'd say
Usher,
yes. Oh,
Usher.
yes. Yes.
Did Townley want to be a senator or
No.
He didn't want office himself?
Townley wanted no office whatever, and I think Townley was absolutely honest until he got disillusioned politics and at the yes, and in forming the Nonpartisan League, why we went out and got memberships. I don't know whether it was up to $16. I got $16 suckers for this and that. I went around with a couple others in my precinct and we took post-dated checks. And one fellow said he'd give us a post-dated check, but he said, God, he said, I wouldn't want that check going at the bank. He says, can I give you the check, post-dated check, and you give your check to the bank? And I said, yes. But the check that he gave me cleared the bank. But you know, practically all of the other checks that were post-dated, the banks didn't cash them. They refused to cash them.
Why?
Because they didn't want the money to go, and that left the Nonpartisan League about busted. It was all over the state. The banks said they didn't have to cash checks. And before we knew what had happened, why, things had went, so these checks were hard to...
So the banks were trying to choke out the...
Oh, of course. Christ, there's no question about that. The old banker would come out there and tell you not to go near the Nonpartisan League. I got ordered out of a business place in town here where I was working. Odd days I'd come in from the farm because I wanted to take the afternoon off in here at town. They told me if I went to here at town, they'd have to come back.
Were the lines pretty clearly drawn, Henry, between the rural people and the city people?
Yes. Very clearly drawn. There was no question pressure was put on. That was an accomplishment to take over the state. But she was pretty bad. It was timely, I guess, that but to be able to take over almost the legislature and everything up there at one time. But Townie was, he was a rabble-rouser. Slick.
Were there any men for the IVA or that stayed hardline conservative Republican that were of the same caliber as a Langer or a Townley or a Lemke or a Burdick?
Lemke was a good man too. He was a platform man. But they had this stuff to go on. They had these records and such.
Uh-huh.
Things had got pretty bad. It's like this down in Washington. Nobody thought that anything was as bad as that down there at when this first broke down there.
Henry, when you were organized into the league and when you went out with other people to organize other farmers, what sort of selling points did you use? What were you trying to achieve initially?
Well, to reform the banking and the grain business, that's what it was. They were both interlocked.
Uh-huh. That was the threat of the St. Paul, Minneapolis influence
Yes,
on
that's
North
right.
Dakota.
That's right.
Were there any other lesser issues, freight rates or anything like that, or?
Not that I recall.
Uh-huh.
Mostly banks and the grain trade.
If you got any opposition from a farmer, I mean, if you went to a farmer's place that was hard to organize, what kind of opposition would they voice to you?
Oh, it was just like the banker. Then the banker came out to see you. You stay out of politics. You stay out of politics. We'll take care of the politics. Don't let them get you interested in politics. That was the main thing.
What would the hardline Republican people use to discourage people from joining the League? Was it called socialism or communism or Bolshevism?
Bolshevism. Bolshevism. And that was, they had the women scared with this free love deal.
That really stuck.
Oh,
Huh?
there's no question about it. That they even had the stories that go around, a couple of women from out of the state were on the train. The conductor came along, took up the tickets. Here's a drunk film all over his ticket. Where's that fucking ticket? The woman turned to the other woman. She said, "We're in North Dakota.
What?
We're in North Dakota."
Oh. Free love.
Yeah. This was published in the Red Flame that every woman would carry a ticket. And that had to be punched so many times a month or any man could exercise his right to punch her. That was it.
And the basis for that free love was the fact that this old fellow wanted to adopt these.
Well, that was one of the things. That was actually, they used that as one story.
Can you explain that for me once more, Henry? Now what was his name? The NPL elected senator here?
Yes. One of them, two pedigrees. One was a senator, one was in the House. Two brothers lived out here in the Elridge neighborhood.
What were their names?
One was Dick Pendray, and the other was, I don't know, but the son of one of them still lives here, Dick Pendray.
Uh-huh.
But this story, it's the Ernest Denault. He wanted to adopt the Robertson family, and they were adults. And that's all it was, to get a bill where we had no law that provided for the adoption of adults.
And this Denault had raised the Robertson.
Yes, he had raised the Robertson family.
But had not adopted them, and before he died, he wanted to adopt them.
Yes.
Okay.
Especially this one had been killed in the World War over there.
Uh-huh.
That's Ernest Robertson.
Uh-huh.
Dick Pendray could tell you about it. I suppose he remembers it. But it's surprising if there isn't one of those papers around. The damn things were printed with red ink, you know, the Red Flame. And it was all of this, the worst damn possible stuff.
Was that supposed to be the opposite of the Leader?
Yes.
The Red Flame was the IVA, and the Leader was the Nonpartisan League.
The Leader was the Nonpartisan League. The Leader was well read because they had this editor that was such a wonderful writer.
Uh-huh.
That was the start of these little books and such as that. He started Jim Jam Jims in Bismarck. Did you ever hear that?
Yeah, yeah.
And he was editor of The Leader, and he was such a clever writer that he made it interesting. When the Leader came over to some office, businessmen, they'd take a look at it, look at his stuff, and laugh over it and such. It's like Jim Jam Jims,
Uh-huh.
barred from the mail and such as that, and got nationwide published.
Did you know any of the writers for the Leader, like Barr? Wasn't it Barr, the cartoonist? Bear?
Bear, yes. Not very well. Bear finally became a congressman, you see.
Uh-huh.
He was a cartoonist for the Leader.
Now let me ask you, Henry, a little bit about the Farmers Union. Did you know Talbot?
Yes, very well.
What kind of a fellow was he?
Old Charlie Talbot was a good organizer, sincere, made a lot of sacrifices for the Farmers Union. No question about it. When they ran out of money, why, he put his own money into it. I knew him exceptionally well. I attended the first meeting of the Farmers Union, was charter member and with the all through. Glenn, the Farmers Union was built by the time Glenn got active in it, or these young fellows are active in it now.
Well, then let me ask you, Henry, about Charlie. Now, had he been a Granger, or did he have a background of a co-op family that he started working with the union movement?
Charlie Talbot?
Yeah.
Not that I know of. I don't know if we had any co-ops before that, before the Farmers Union.
Where did he get the idea, or where did?
I really don't know where he got the idea. But it was just like the forming of a nonpartisan league. Farmers were desperate. That was about it. But why, how, at the Glenn would have, Glenn's boy got into lots of trouble. I was probably as close to Glenn Talbot as anybody at the, Glenn at first, when his boys started giving so much trouble, why, Glenn said he'd have to quit the Farmers Union and such as that. And I saw him turn from that to he said, God damn it, this is my Farmers Union. I built it. Nobody's going to take it away from me.
This is Glenn now?
Glenn. And of course he took it over. I don't know what about the Farmers Union now. Do you notice they seem to have all kinds of money. They say they took money, raised money here, and put it in that fertilizer plant down in New Mexico, into that mine down there. Now, when they started that, I knew Bill Thatcher and the head of the exchange, oil down there, and I went and asked him, what about it? Is that a good deal? They said, no, it is not. He said, sure, there's phosphate or whatever it is down there. But it's completely out of position. It's like your lignite coal in the western part of the state. It is, it'll fail. And we want nothing to do with it. Well, you know, the Farmers Union lost over $1 million on that, the Farmers Union insurance. And they had that wonderful building down there at Denver. They lost that. People up here didn't know. They said the state wanted it down there and they had to sell it to them. But they lost it to the Baldwin Piano Company, the one that took it all over. And I have the papers around here somewhere. The Baldwin Piano Company has complete control of the National Farmers Union Insurance. It's through one company and another, but they have complete control of it. And now Farmers Union Insurance men are selling Baldwin stock. You notice that?
No.
They're selling stock in Baldwin Company, Ball whatever it is. I don't know how the hell they're worked out of that. Seems to be so damn much money in the insurance business that they can, but they lost everything down there on that
Fertilizer thing.
fertilizer deal. They went in with Kerr McGee. Kerr McGee put nothing in it but their name and took everything. Under Glenn Talbot was no businessman at all, and what's his name, the other fellow that was national president, same way. Everything they took over went busted, and they took over that insurance company, and that insurance company was busted before this deal, and these boys from here went down there and put it on their feet. They're still down there with it. But then land and the other busted it again with this year fertilizer deal.
Was a farmers union member apt to be a nonpartisan leaguer too?
Oh,
Was a farmers union member apt to be a farm holiday member?
yes, with all of us there.
Uh-huh. Was there any interaction between the farmers union and the nonpartisan league?
Oh, very much so. Farmers Union, you take the Farmer Labor Party in Minnesota was financed and built up by the M.W. Thatcher and the Great Terminal Association. In North Dakota, by this is where I got active in politics, is helping these young fellows like Gorman King, Charlie Tye, and these wanted to take over the Democratic Party. It was controlled here through Dave Kelly and his brother-in-law, who had charge of internal revenue.
This is a convoluted organization here.
Well, this is what see, the Democrats, when it looked like when Roosevelt went in, people politically wise could see that the Democrats were going to take over. And so P.W. and their Bill and their's father came here to Jamestown, an attorney, and got together with Pete Zappas, who was with the Democratic Party, and they took over the Democratic Party in the state. And patronage was what they were after. And they did not want to elect any candidates, because if they elected any candidates, why then they couldn't control the patronage. And they sold jobs.
Post office or?
Post offices and everything.
Oh. Because of Roosevelt's administration?
Yes. Langer told me afterwards he was sorry that he didn't change when Roosevelt went in and joined the Democratic Party, but he didn't. But then it was Gorman King, Charlie Tye. I don't think Bill Guy was. I don't recall that Bill Guy was there. And they seemed to be sincere in wanting to do this, and I was with the close in with the Farmers Union leadership here, and you can go down there and go into the Farmers Union records and find where I got quite a bit of money for expenses and possibly salary. And I never got a penny personally from the Farmers Union in my life. But they wanted to, the League needed somebody, or the Democrats needed somebody to go out and do legwork. Why, they financed him through me. They sold him a car in one case down there, and he submitted his expenses and such. I was the one that got the money, and I turned it over to him. And I had the use of the Farmers Union plane. The time Stevenson ran for office, why there was Gorman, Buck Snortland. I don't know if you've known him. He was in the legislature, but he's up at Sharon. He's a millionaire now. At the, they wanted to do something for Stevenson estate and take it over. And so, well, you can take a look at that picture up there, take it down. That was a political organization set up to defend the farm program. At the, my picture is, I was in there at the, and so I was the go-between between these young fellows, Farmers Union, and the National Administration. these fellows wanted to get started and do something here, so
You mean Gorman King and
Yeah.
who was the other fellow?
Bucks Nordland
Yeah.
and Bob Vogel. I took a farmers union plane and took. They were having their regional meetings, the Democratic National Committee, prior to the campaign. There was a meeting in Denver. And so I took the farmers union plane in Gorman and went down there. Steve Mitchell was national chairman then. Gorman thought he'd have no trouble seeing somebody. Gorman thinks quite a fellow always has. He didn't get nowheres, but I, through my connections with this. Steve Mitchell came up to our room after midnight. I remember he said he'd be there before he went to sleep, before he went to bed. He unbuttoned his pants and laid down on the bed, and he said, "I'm all in." He said, "Now, boys, what's your trouble?" And I said, "Well, these young fellows want to start work up there. Dave Kelly won't do anything." And he says they can't do anything in North Dakota. They have to send all the money to Washington. Steve Mitchell spoke up and he said, "Well, boys," he said, "Dave Kelly doesn't send any money to Washington." But he said that Dave Kelly is Irish, and he said most of the National Committee is Irish, and he said they stick along in the bus together, those old Irishmen. He said, "I don't know what we can do." He said, "I couldn't give you any money, but he said, I think I can." He said, "We have the volunteers for Stevenson, and he said, if you want to set that up, why, says, you can collect in the name of the Democratic Party and be recognized by the Democratic Party." And Gorman said, "That's fine, we'll go right ahead." And I said, "Look at here, Stephen. These boys haven't got any money. I put in all the money I can afford to put into it, and such as that. They've got to." Well, he went to the phone and called somebody. Pretty quick, as a labor man came up. And Steve told him what it was. And this fellow says, "How much money do you need?" Before I could say anything, like Gorman spoke up and said, "God, if we had $1,000, we could really go to town." I said, "I'll have $1,000 for you in the morning." And that was it. We came back here and called a meeting here in Jamestown for these young fellows over the state. I suppose there's 15, 20 more, Meadow and the Gladstone. Set up the volunteers for Stevenson. And Gorman brought the list over to me, the names that they. And I saw Bob Vogel's name on that. And I took a pencil and put a line through it, called Bob over, and I said, "Yeah, Bob, you're too valuable a piece of political property." I said, "This may not go over." I said, "You're in good standing in the Republican Party." Well, if I hadn't taken Bob Vogel off there, I don't suppose you'd ever been a Republican United States District Attorney.
Yeah.
But that's where my acquaintance with Bob Vogel comes in. And such. Amongst my accomplishments, I have appeared before the North Dakota Supreme Court. I'm the only layman who has ever appeared before the North Dakota Supreme Court, been recognized, made a party to the action. That's a few years ago.
Was that in connection with
No,
this?
this is that we used to have a bill in the state that, an ethics bill, anti-corruption bill, they called it. Now we get into the Jungroth deal over here. If you've got time to listen to this, I'll ramble on.
Oh, you just keep on rambling, right?
Jungroth was state chairman, or national or state committeeman, or whatever it was.
That was after Gorman King?
Well, this was in late years here.
Uh-huh.
He was prominent in Democratic politics. He was a member of the legislature. But he couldn't get along with Bill Guy on some of the things that Bill was doing. And so Bill ignored him. And Bill had our General Jungroth was attorney for the state hospital up here. But out of it got less than $1,000 a year. And Bill Guy, according to Mark Andrews, Bill is Mark said we used to play baseball together when we was kids, and he said if the decision went against Bill, if it was his ball or bat, the game was over. But Bill took this here measly state hospital job away from Jungroth and gave it to Dave Nething. And Otmer and Nething.
Republican.
Yeah.
Nothing
and Nething took over 52,000, over 10,000 a year out of that. And so they came in conflict with this law. And Nething, in order to keep from the Otmer statement, says that if this law is not declared unconstitutional, we are subject to criminal prosecution and disbarment from the practice of law. And so they, Melland, and Jack Bernabusi, there were other senators in the same boat. So they organized a bunch of lawyers, got a bunch of lawyers, and had to declare this law unconstitutional. Well, Bob Vogel called me up, and I'm in a hell of a shape here to take my picture.
No, that's all right.
Lay it back
Just keep
like
on
this.
talking, Henry.
Bob Vogel called me up. He said, Henry, he said, there's a lot of us attorneys, judges, prominent people in the state that don't like this here deal that's going on, declare this law unconstitutional because we're afraid what will happen. Now he said, we need a name to oppose it. And he said, could we use your name? He said, I will be as your attorney of record. He said, and helping me will be the Metzke firm of Minot and one other firm. And because Bob Vogel asked me why, I said yes. I didn't like to see this what was happening either. So, then this goddamn Minot Bank deal came up.
The plot thickens.
Yeah. And the Metzke firm was in no position to bring up the anti-corruption. And Bob Vogel lost his support. Bob found that his own partner up there at Mandan was Special Attorney General for the Mandan School, getting quite a bit of money. So I saw Weiss over at the post office on Sunday, and I says, when's that thing coming up for the Supreme Court? He says, Tuesday. So it was a day like day, I had nothing to do. I came back here and prepared a brief on it. And I was up there Tuesday, and when the Supreme Court up, and here's the four law firms represented. Paul Sams representing the state. Weiss representing this firm. The Nilly's firm, Fargo, was represented. The big law firm of Bismarck was represented, and the big law firm of Grand Forks was represented. And I stood back of the rail and asked permission to address the court. The amicus curiae. The judge said, that was Anderberg, said to address the court as amicus curiae. I said, we have to have so many days pre-notice. I said, I know that, Your Honor. I found that out yesterday, but as you know, I'm not an attorney. I said, I wonder if you're going to let something like that stand in the way. Well, what's you choose? And I said, well, I have a brief to offer. And they recessed, and judges went into a huddle. Paul Sands run downstairs to see Helge Johansson. Weiss come over to me and said, what are you attempting to do, Henry? And I said, just stall for time, but well, that there, they reconvened, and they said, Mr. Anderberg, your brief will be accepted, and we'll consider it. And I didn't hear anything that happened up there for about 30 days. And then I got a registered notice that I had won my point. Was given 30 days to prepare, and I was made a party to the action. I was made a party to the action on the strength of the fact that I had signed a petition. Pretty far-fetched. Also on the fact that we had our law system was there's supposed to be another one on both sides, and there we had an assistant attorney general prosecuting assistant attorney general.
Mm-hmm.
But because of this minor bill, Bob Vogel couldn't do anything in that, so I just wrote him a letter and thanked him. And withdrew from it. And I'm the only layman that's ever appeared before the North Dakota Supreme Court.
Henry, now, what's the relationship then as a result of Guy getting rid of John Roth as attorney? Keep talking, I guess.
Well, as I know it, Jim John Roth was, when that was taken away from him, and Jim John Roth was a good Democrat.
Can I smoke a cigarette?
Oh, of course. Well, he sat quiet here. He knew that Bill Guy worked against him at the legislature. Bill Guy stood down here and addressed a group and told them to vote for all of your candidates, and didn't mention Jim General. But Jim just waited his turn, his time. I'm opposed to Bill Guy. I built this terminal elevator up here and brought grain inspection in here to Jamestown. And I wanted to bring grain inspection to Fargo. For certain reasons, the grain trade don't like me. And through John Finsness, who was then with the Fargo Chamber of Commerce, I had a pretty good idea of what was going on down there, he told me. The only way they could stop me from setting up grain inspection at Fargo, and my son is a licensed grain inspector, federal, was the state had a prior right. And when I learned that Goldberg and Gunkelman had went up and seen the governor and got the governor to put in state inspection at Fargo, the state has a prior right. He had no right to do it legally because the state didn't provide for it, but he set it up out there at the college. I couldn't believe it because I knew Bill Guy just like Gorman King. And I went up to Bill Guy to his office to ask him about it. And the way Bill squirmed, I knew that it was true, that Goldberg and Gunkelman had blocked me. And then he said, Henry, he says, how much is it worth to you? And I blew my top. I told him I'd give him money to the Democratic Party, as he knew very well. But as far as giving him any money personally, he could go plumb to hell. And I stormed out. I went over to Charlie Conrad and told Charlie, because I was deeply hurt and I had a century pin, $100 or more every year. I threw it across to Charlie and I said, I won't through. But Bill wrote off people like that. And he thought he wrote off Jim Jungroth. Now, I'm not so close to Jungroth as to know all of this. Jim Roth wanted to beat Bill Guy. There's no question about that. He went in there to beat Bill Guy. But he was sincere on this water and coal deal. And I think Jim made quite a contribution to the state by bringing that up publicly, more than people will realize. No question in my mind that Jim got money from Milt Young people. I don't think direct from Milt Young himself or whether he had anything to do with it. Bill Wright, of course, was a buddy of Jim Ross. Scott Anderson, as I know well, Scott Anderson was from Jamestown too. But during the election, Scott Anderson spent over 2 weeks over in Rome. But I told Jim after the election, I said, Jim, I don't know whether congratulations are in order or not, but I envy you. I said, no, I sort of flirted with the idea that if Milt won by 1 vote, I could call Bill Guy up and tell him it was mine, goddamn. Because I found out afterwards. They worked hard here in Stutsman County, but the appointments, the favors, go to Republicans. Bob Mellon is the closest man in Jamestown to Bill Guy. Nothing, and you probably didn't hear this story at the Senator Stribel. McCartney put out a story that Stribel was up there playing golf all day, in charge of the state for his time. Stribel sued McCartney for a lot of money. Stribel subpoenaed Dave Nething. And Dave Nething went up there and testified that he was the one that told Stribel that, and it was true. Stribel was so damn mad that he wrote the accounts and purchases, wanted to know how much money Otmer and Nething had taken out of the state hospital in the last 4 years, and it's $53,000. They're getting a retainer of $875 a month last August. And he sent that down here to Meininger. The original story came from me as far as that's concerned. He sent it to Meininger, and Meininger didn't make it public. But this was, the Democrats here wanted to bring it out, these legislative candidates. Bill Guy said he didn't want nothing done in Stutsman County that would hurt Nething or Millen because he needed them to defeat Milt Young. This is a political story. At the,
you think Bill sort of thinks that it's Bill Guy and not the Democratic Party?
What?
He's willing to cut the Democratic Party's throat in order to push Bill Guy?
Who?
Bill Guy.
Bill Guy is all for Bill Guy himself.
Not for the party, not particularly.
You take the appointments he's made in Jamestown, Meininger, Vince Buck, Dr. Larson.
How did ISTA get in?
ISTA, I don't know. I have had no part in Democratic politics since for these years. I've laid out of it. There's a lot of good boys in there and such as that. I don't blame anybody for supporting Bill Guy. I just can't. The son of a bitch asked me for money for himself. I was damn lucky I didn't get caught with about $8,000 worth of equipment for a protein lab down there.
Let me ask you a question, Henry. I have heard stories that I know that gossip distorts politics a lot, but sometimes I think there's a lot of truth in the essence of gossip, boiled down. Why is chairmanship of the Democratic Party in North Dakota so important? Because I've heard stories of people mortgaging their land to buy control of the Democratic Party in North Dakota.
Well, at one time, of course, it was that when these young fellows took it over, every job was sold. Every job was sold. I've got a letter here, I'll give you a copy of it, that we took with the help of the Farmers Union. We took over the Democratic Party, I and Gorman King. and we had control for a while. And they had their headquarters down at Fargo with John Neistel. That was the head of it down there. And we got complete control and sent Gorman to Fargo to get the records and stuff, move the headquarters to Valley City. When Gorman went down there, why, there was nothing. This file belongs to Dave Kelly, this belongs to this and this and that, so he didn't get anything. And I told Gorman, I said, well, did you get the mail transferred? No, he said, well, I said, he was moving headquarters. Slip into the post office and get the mail sent to Valley City. And so we got some damn good letters. I'll show you one of them here at the way this was handled. If you got well, this is something that I can't prove. If you got a post office, you might have been a good Republican, got a post office if you paid the most for it. After you had got, I tell you that you've got the post office, you announced and such as that. Then I'd call you in and say, now look here, you got this here because you're a good Democrat. We're going to see to it that you stay a good Democrat. You sign this. What's that? It's your resignation. Now you sign that there, and as long as you stay loyal to the party, you got nothing concerned about. We're not going to have you, now that you get better off, turn against the party. So the fellow signed it, but they held it along this way. It wasn't dated. Then they had the system down there that every office holder, every month, got an envelope containing an envelope. Now, envelope, all it had was a code number on it. And all the envelope inside was addressed by, and you put your so much money in there and mailed it every month. If you didn't mail the month, why, you had that there. All they had to do was date your resignation and you were through. And you didn't dare complain about it because it was against the law for you to accept a job under that. And they took in one hell of a lot of money. Now, when we were building up the party, I met with Steve Mitchell in Des Moines. I took the boys down to Denver, but I went down to Des Moines. That's for the next regional meeting. That was supposed to be the North Dakota meeting. And Steve Mitchell called in Dave Kelly. We had a vacancy here for a Congress post. Labor wanted that vacancy. Labor said, if we can put our man in there, we'll put in so much money and we'll put 2 men on the road from now until election. And we called Dave Kelly in, and Dave Kelly agreed to that he'd call a group together down here, and they would give the nomination to this man, whoever he was named. And so this Buck Snortland, J. Arthur Angton, and I was supposed to be a committee of 3 to meet with him. Buck Snortland and J. Arthur Angton were called in for Internal Revenue that same day, the same hour of this meeting. And so, they wouldn't go through with this deal. I called up Steve Mitchell, wrote to him, I guess, and told him what had happened. He called me up and he says, Henry, he says, I checked into that. He said, you're right, it was political. They were called in just that he says, you know damn well what Dave Kelly promised. I want you to know that I know damn well what Dave Kelly promised. As soon as this campaign is over, I'll be out there and clean up that mess. So that is why I know some of these things. But that was why this is one thing that should now Dorgan made an awful good showing this year. Mr. Dorgan, as tax commissioner, has got an introduction that very few men have got. Now, because of the abuses of internal revenue, you can't tell me the name of the Dorgan and the Fargo, can you? You can't tell me who's been there, who's ever been internal collector at Fargo.
No.
Because he's a man that has to be completely out of politics and from out of the state, and he stays out of politics. This is what we're going to have to do in North Dakota. I like Dorgan, he's a young man, he's aggressive and such as that. But he hasn't got the right to use that office. When Mr. Dorgan wants to see a businessman here in Jamestown, the businessman is so damn relieved when he hears that Dorgan, the collector of internal revenue, or the tax commissioner, is in his office, that all he wants is his voter support. He's tickled to death to give it to him. But that'll have to be taken out of politics, or taken just the same as federal. Because if you have the power, if you wanted to go and see some businessman and before you go and take a look at his file there. And you come in to see me and say, introduce yourself and said, I was looking over your file the other day. There's a little problem there, but I think we can take care of that. Why, you've got quite an introduction. There was a time when I could get that information out of Bismarck. If I'd want to find out, at one time, if I'd want to find out through your tax statement, I could have found out.
I want to say, yeah, we're running out of tape here, Henry. There's a couple more things I want to ask you. What's the chances? This is contemporary now, but it'll be history in the future. What are the chances, in your estimation, of Bill Guy beating Quentin Burdick?
Quentin is not at all afraid of that. Quentin spent most of his time campaigning, listening and getting where at the Bill Guy was cutting his throat all over the state. Quentin learned that Bill Guy wanted to be the senior senator just as soon as he could be, and he was grooming Dorgan. If a guy got to be senator, Dorgan would run against Quentin. And Quentin found out that he could not get the nomination if Bill Guy got to be senator, and he's prepared to run as an independent.
Quentin is?
Yes, Quentin is prepared to run as an independent, and thinks he has enough on Bill Guy so that he can make it. Now then, what is going on right now, you saw that Bill Guy was down and talked to Quentin in Washington. I heard down at Fargo that Milt Young and Mark Andrews were trying to get a job for Bill Guy in Washington, such as Larson was taken care of, you see.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Andrews has something to be afraid of, as Dorgan. And I think Bill Guy went down there to see Quentin, because Bill Guy can't get a job down in Washington without Quentin's approval. I don't think.
How can Bill Guy stop Quentin Burdick, a name and an experience like that, from getting the Democratic nomination?
Because he controls the party.
That strongly?
Yeah. This is a Bill Guy party in the state now. It's not a Democratic party.
But Burdick could beat
That's here when these legislative candidates in Stutzman County had to almost lay down because Bill Guy says, I don't want my friend Nothing or Mellon hurt. Mellon and Nothing thought they were beat. Yet this came out about that Otmer and Nothing took $53,000 out of the state hospital in the last 4 years. Been hard to defend, wouldn't it?
Sure would, yeah.
Here's a piece of land out here. Mellon and Nothing introduced a bill, state hospital land, to sell that to a group in Jamestown for $150 an acre. According to there's nothing but brush, weeds. The piece of land, I'll give $500 an acre for it. I'm afraid they may do that. I had enough stuff on Bob Mellon and nothing at the 2 years ago when I went to Washington. Here's Emerson Murray, Bob Mellon, Stribel in Washington. They had been to Albany, New York to observe the workings of the New York legislature. From Washington, they went out to California to observe the workings of the California legislature. Did you ever hear a report on that, what they found out? It'd be kind of embarrassing to find out how much money that cost the state, wouldn't it? They went as legislative research group. That's what but you could, the Democrats here, you could tell them, but they couldn't bring it out because Bill Guy didn't want this here. I'm prejudiced against Bill Guy, and for this reason, and since that time, I've checked with others, fellows who've told me of what they had to do. So,
What about the Minot Bank deal now?
the Minot Bank deal, now here it is, with no anti-corruption bill. Federal government wanted to prosecute them up there. There's a bank examiner who's now the manager of the Bank of North Dakota. Took money from the Minot Bank. And Helge Johansson went up there and testified that there's nothing in the law in North Dakota that prohibits a bank examiner from taking money from the bank that he's examining. And there isn't anything. This is what, the case isn't settled yet. Bill Guy has enough influence evidently to get that damn thing postponed up there. If the truth ever comes out about that, then Bill Guy is smeared and smeared badly, and I know because I had a chance to go into that Minot Bank, and I knew Bill Guy was supposed to be in on it. It was to get all of this here garrison diversion money and such, and REA money. Have you seen some of this stuff that supposed to have come out at that Minot trial?
Mm-mm.
The bank hiring prostitutes?
Yeah, oh, that, yeah.
You read that?
Yeah.